I've never drank anything other than wine and whiskey and beer, but
Well, I drink just about anything that has alcohol in it. Bay rum, Pink Lady, which is known as canned heat in most places, denatured alcohol. And I have heard tell of straining this radiator alcohol through rye bread. Now, I don't know whether I ever had any of that or not, but if anybody run it through the bread, I imagine I drank it because I drank with them kind of people.
Them kind of people. Who are these people that drink such strange concoctions? From the residents of the Salvation Army Harbor Light Center, we have gathered a panel of experts to answer some questions about Skid Row and its people. Skid Row, that collection of flop houses and greasy spoons, soup lines and rescue missions, found in the downtown section of most large cities, where homeless men are relegated to the scrap heap. What authority does our panel have to speak of Skid Row? Gentlemen, state your credentials.
well, I'm 39 years old, and I've been around 3 years.
I'm 65 years old, and my first attempt on Skid Row was about 1945.
I'm 50. I've been in this life for about 15 years.
I'm 61. I've been around Skid Row for about 25 years.
Traditional reasons for living on Skid Row are the low cost of living and public toleration of extreme drinking. Why did you go to Skid Row?
Skid Row to me is where people don't care how you look and people don't ask any questions.
Skid Row to me is a place where you can get lost, because on Skid Row most of us do stay drunk. And when our money's low, why, we'll drink anything, and most of the people that we know on Skid Row, we can always manage to get a drink off of somebody, to get up courage to go out and chisel some more drinks.
When sober and living at the Harbor Light, the alcoholic is often a very industrious worker. But when he starts to drink, he no longer has time for work. He is too busy getting drunk, is drunk, or is too sick to think of working, if indeed anyone would consider hiring him in his weakened condition. Some men die on the streets, but for most, life goes on. Gentlemen, how do you live on Skid Row?
On this Skid Row that I'm on now, I know quite a few people here. I've been on it for about 3 years, and I usually borrow money from them while I'm drinking. I don't like to bum off anybody that I don't know unless I'm real drunk. Then I don't care. But
Oh, I generally hang up around shows. That is the better, higher class shows. When I see well-dressed people coming out there, they're easy to bum. Or I'll wait outside of a pretty high-class saloon, and a well-dressed guy will come out, and he's half in a bag. He's generally generous. Most of them dish out.
Well, most of the time when I start on a drunk, I generally have some pretty good clothes. And when it gets down to where I can't get nothing off of the public, why, I'll try to get my clothes either out of a hut or out of where I left them and sell them to some guys that do have a few dollars on them.
Skid Row residents have developed some colorful terms. What is a flop house and a greasy spoon?
well, a flop house is just a place where you can get a bed for maybe 50 cents a night or something like that, in dormitories or.
Years ago, flop houses used to be cheap. They said 25 cents a night. You could sleep for 25 cents a night. I know some of them you could sleep in a chair for 25 cents, and you could lay down for $50.
Well, a Greasy Spoon restaurant is usually a place where it's kind of dirty, and the grub is cheap. And if you're kind of a steady customer, once in a while you get a free meal.
Well, to me, I've never had in a greasy spoon while I was sober because I couldn't stand the smell. But when I was drunk, I didn't care what it smelled like if I got the chuckars. That's a man that's trying to come off a drunk and he's getting an appetite, and that's what we call chuckars. But a greasy spoon is by the service, by the equipment they use, and it's just a cheap place to eat with cheap food.
Doctors, lawyers, and Indian chiefs have all made the long, torturous trip to Skid Row. But the majority of the men found here are semi-skilled or skilled workers with a high school education. Let's find out what our panel did before moving to Skid Row.
Well, before I came to the Harbor Light Center, I worked Ford Motor Company in the cost accounting department.
I was mostly a truck driver, and for several years I was with the Bethlehem Steel at Sparrows Point running overhead cranes and charging cranes.
Well, before I came to Harbor Light, I worked for Dayton Rubber. I worked as a truck driver for 5 years. About 4.5 years I worked as a truck driver. And then I started working in the plant. I started working in the mixing room, so I completed 10 years there.
Before I came to the Harbor Light, I was a painter decorator.
The Salvation Army operates a worldwide chain of Harbor Light centers where thousands of homeless men are fed each night of the week. A small percentage of these men become center residents, giving evidence of their desire to stop drinking and to go to work. Free dormitory beds and meals are provided during the orientation period, and the beneficiary is helped with any pressing medical or personal problems. Center residents begin to work at menial tasks, and as their health and attitudes improve, they move up the occupational ladder. Most men are soon working at jobs outside of the center, although they continue to live and attend classes at the center. As soon as a man begins to draw a pay, he starts to contribute toward the cost of his stay at the center. The last question to our panel is, gentlemen, what does the Harbor Light Center mean to you?
Has really brought me back to sanity, I would say. It kept my thinking from that whiskey, from that booze. Slowly but surely, it gave me the reason what the good Lord can do for a man if he gets that booze idea out of his head and thinks of the Lord and depends on the Lord in a sincere manner. And I have found that the Harbor Light, we don't only have our presence over, but we work it and we live it.
Without this place, I have no home. And Harbor Light, it helped me to stay sober and hold up my sobriety and try to walk the streets as other men are doing. And then the way, when I'm here, I can walk the streets, I can look another man in the eye and not ashamed.
Well, the Harbor Light Center means to me a way of life, because without it I wouldn't have no life. As long as I stay in the program areas, it has brought the respect of my children back to me, and it's brought me back to realize what God means to me, because the many times I have failed him, I know that as long as I have him walking with me, I can talk to him anytime.
Well, the Harbor Light Center has been a great help to me in keeping me sober. And well, it's like the other fellows say, when you're drunk and hanging around your family, they don't seem to want anything to do with you. And the Harbor Light Center has been a big help in keeping me clean and having some respect about myself, which I don't have when I'm drinking. And well, it's just been a wonderful help to me.
One of the unique approaches in the field of alcoholism developed at the Harbor Light involves music. During their first week in the center, the clients meet their music therapist in a relaxed 45-minute session over coffee and donuts. Let's join Supervisor Louise Steele as she discusses this program with registered music therapist Harvey Hall.
Harvey, how has your music therapy program developed this year?
Well, we have evolved a routine that sees men in their first week in the center and orients them to participation in a musical activity. Hopefully, they find this interesting and enjoyable, and we reinforce this feeling even further in the second week.
It seems to me that one of the most significant things about this first session is that after you've talked for a little while and everybody is kind of loosened up, you all go downstairs and participate in a direct experience together. What you have talked about and the analogies you draw, of course, are worked out directly in the music-making session, with each man actually contributing to his environment.
And that's what we are trying to do.
Even though many of these middle-aged men have had no previous experience with musical instruments, they begin to make musical sounds right from the start. Let's listen in to hear how it is done.
Gentlemen, I think we are ready to pick up where we left off upstairs. We're now near some instruments we can use to demonstrate that it is not such a big deal to learn how to make a musical sound. If we can keep up with one more musical sound, then we are prepared to make an awful lot of music in about 1 minute of lesson time. Although this string bass is a large instrument, it is easy to make a musical sound on it. For example, by holding this string here with my left hand and plucking it with my right, we get our first musical sound. Now I let go of the string with my left hand and pluck it again with my right hand, and we get our second musical sound. This is what we have been talking about, the feeling that we have learned and can accomplish the making of two different musical sounds. The other instruments may look different, but what we do with them is the same kind of thing we did with the bass.
The same quick lesson technique is used with other instruments, and the therapist soon forms the individuals into a music-making group. Each man adds his note to the harmony, while the therapist gives the signals and plays the piano.
As my signals indicate, gentlemen, each player will play his two assigned notes. Here we go, and feel this rhythm, which I'll demonstrate now. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ready? How many chords are we making?
Two.
That's right, too.
Two.
Right. We're making two different chords, and with these chords, as I said earlier, we will be able to play half a dozen pieces before our class time runs out tonight. I'll play the melody on the piano and assist with the rhythms. Orchestra ready? Here we go.
The next week, the men are assigned to the Advanced Music Makers session to complete their musical orientation. After this, attendance is on a voluntary basis. A few of the men sign up for individual music lessons, and some eventually join the beginner's orchestra, which here is assisted by a few experienced players. The Harbor Light Center Combo is sometimes asked to provide music at Salvation Army and civic meetings with personalities such as Gary Moore and Betsy Palmer. Formed of center residents with frequent changes in personnel, the combo has helped to make 2 films for the United Appeal and has appeared on a number of TV shows. Listen now as the combo plays Walk with the Lord. Changing instruments, the combo plays Home on the Range. This actual recording of a 1965 appearance demonstrates the combo's ability to communicate as the audience spontaneously begins to clap along with the music of A Million Songs. To further involve the residents of the center and to add variety to the nightly services, amateur musical programs are occasionally presented. A recent favorite has been the haunting melody, Opus Number 5. The following professionally produced program was broadcast 16 times over 5 stations.
And now, the Illuminating Company invites you to listen.
But I never became a heavy drinker till I was about 40 years old. And I was just a little past 50 when I came here.
Charlie is semi-retired. He used to be a cook. He's 5'6" and carries most of his 211 pounds around the middle. Charlie has done other things besides being a cook. He's played semi-pro baseball, raised a family, worked for a chemical company, lost track of his only daughter, became an alcoholic, and finally conquered alcoholism. He spent the middle years of his life on Skid Row, a place you can't find because it's nowhere. Skid Row is really the state of mind of a broken man. On location, the sounds and stories of a great city, its skillful people, and its significant events. Presented by the Illuminating Company. Some alcoholics can be helped by their families, others by a scare from police, still others by Alcoholics Anonymous. On East 9th Street, across from the old Erie Cemetery, is the last place an alcoholic can go for help, the Salvation Army's Harbor Light Center. It shares the facilities of the Red Shield Hotel for Men. By and large, the alcoholics who come here are not shiftless. They have trades and have held jobs. Most of them have known misfortune, bad marriages, or both, and the disappointment was too much to handle. The more they drank, the more jobs they lost, the more their families and friends rejected them. Charlie knows the feeling.
Just like a little pet dog or a pet cat. When they get hurt or get in trouble, they want to go hide somewhere and take care of themselves.
Most of the alcoholics who come to the Harbor Light leave in less than a month to go back to booze, giving up cleanliness and a job for reasons they can't even understand.
I was a cook here in this place on our snack bar. And one afternoon, I'd had my meat ordered for supper that night, and it was to be Swiss steak. And it came time for me to go get it. So I'd already ordered the meat over the phone. And when I went to get the meat, I walked in the meat market and the man says, "It's not ready yet. It'll be ready in just a few minutes." And right next door was the saloon. And I can't tell you why, but I went right out that meat market and right next door to the saloon and I got plastered.
7 times he tried to kick the habit and failed. But each time Charlie returned to the Harbor Light, drunk and sick, but ready to try again. According to Major Edward Diamond, the center's director, the alcoholic residents here are kept so busy with religious services, group therapy, jobs, hobbies, the Indians' baseball games, and other outings that they don't have time to think of drinking. How does Charlie value his 14 years without a drink? A few years ago, he scraped together all his savings and went to visit his daughter in Florida. He got there only to find she had moved to another state. Yet the wonderful thing was, Charlie didn't share his keen disappointment with a bottle. For the sake of the Charlies in the world, the Salvation Army's Harbor Light Center has existed for 19 years, a light in the window for every man, no matter how many times he falls down on the road of life that passes through the best location in the nation.